Hello, thanks for joining me for another reading through the Bible in chronological order. We are in Habakkuk today. Chapter 1. The pronouncement that the prophet Habakkuk saw. How long, Lord, must I call for help and you do not listen? Or cry out to you about violence and you do not save? Why do you force me to look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Oppression and violence are right in front of me. Strife is ongoing and conflict escalates. This is why the law is ineffective and justice never emerges. For the wicked restrict the righteous, therefore justice comes out perverted. Look at the nations and observe. Be utterly astounded. For I am doing something in your days that you will not believe when you hear about it. Look, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter, impetuous nation that marches across the earth's open spaces to seize territories not its own. They are fierce and terrifying. Their views of justice and sovereignty stem from themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards and more fierce than wolves of the night. Their horsemen charge ahead. Their horsemen come from distant lands. They fly like eagles, swooping to devour. All of them come to do violence. Their faces are set in determination. They gather prisoners like sand. They mock kings. They laugh at every fortress, and rulers are a joke to them. And build they laugh at every fortress and build siege ramps to capture it. Then they sweep by like the wind and pass through. They are guilty. Their strength is their God. Are you not from eternity, Lord my God? My Holy One, you will not die. Lord, you appointed them to execute judgment. My rock, you destined them to punish us. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil, and you cannot tolerate wrongdoing. So why do you tolerate those who are treacherous? Why are you silent while one who is wicked swallows up one who is more righteous than himself? You have made mankind like the fish of the sea, like marine creatures that have no ruler. The Chaldeans pull them all up with a hook, catch them in their dragnet, and gathering them in their fishing net. This is why they are glad and rejoice. That is why they sacrifice to their dragnet and burn incense to their fishing net. For by these things their portion is rich, and their food plentiful. Will they therefore empty their net and continually slaughter nations without mercy? Chapter 2. I will stand at my guard post and station myself on the lookout tower. I will watch to see what he will say to me and what I should reply about my complaint. I want to interrupt the reading just so that you understand this is a dialogue, starting with Habakkuk's prayer, God's answer, Habakkuk's second prayer, and now the Lord's second answer. But understand that in the prayer, Habakkuk's acknowledgement is that in verse 1 of chapter 2, this is a complaint. So the Lord answered me, verse 2. Write down this vision, clearly inscribe it on tablets so one may easily read it. For the vision is yet for the appointed time. It testifies about the end and will not lie. Though it delays, wait for it, since it will certainly come and not be late. Look, his ego is inflated. He is without integrity. But the righteous one will live by his faith. Moreover, wine betrays, an arrogant man is never at rest. He enlarges his appetite like Sheol, and like death he is never satisfied. He gathers all the nations to himself. He collects all the peoples for himself. Won't all of these take up a taunt against him with mockery and riddles about him? They will say, woe to him who amasses what is not his, how much longer? And loads himself with goods taken in pledge. Won't your creditors suddenly arise and those who disturb you wake up? Then you will become spoil for them. Since you have plundered many nations, all the peoples who remain will plunder you because of human bloodshed and violence against land, cities, and all who live in them. Woe to him who dishonestly makes wealth for his house, to place his nest on high, to escape the grasp of disaster. You have planned shame for your house by wiping out many peoples and sinning against your own self. For the stones will cry out from the wall, and the rafters will answer them from the woodwork. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed and founds a town with injustice. Is it not from the Lord of armies that the peoples labor only to fuel the fire, and countries exhaust themselves for nothing? For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord's glory as the water covers the sea. Woe to him who gives his neighbors drink, pouring out your wrath, and even making them drunk in order to look at their nakedness. You will be filled with disgrace instead of glory. You also drink and expose your own uncircumcision. The cup in the Lord's right hand will come around to you, and utter disgrace will cover your glory. For your violence against Lebanon will overwhelm you. The destruction of animals will terrify you because of your human bloodshed and violence against land, cities, and all who live in them. What use is a carved idol after its craftsman carves it? It is only a cast image, a teacher of lies. For the one who crafts it shapes trusts in it and makes worthless idols that cannot speak. Woe to him who says to wood, "Wake up," or to a mute stone, "Come alive." Can it teach? Look, it may be plated with gold and silver, yet there is no breath in it at all. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let the whole earth be silent in his presence. Chapter 3. A prayer of the prophet Habakkuk, according to Shigionoth. Lord, I have heard the report about you. Lord, I stand in awe of your deeds. Revive your work in these years, make it known in these years. In your wrath, remember mercy. God comes from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Peres, Salah. His splendor covers the heavens, and the earth is full of his praise. His brilliance is like light, rays are flashing from his hand. This is where his power is hidden. Plague goes before him, pestilence follows in his steps. He stands and shakes the earth, he looks and startles the nations. The age-old mountains break apart, the ancient hills sink down, his pathways are ancient. I see the tents of Cushan in distress. The tent curtains of the land of Midian tremble. Are you angry at the rivers, Lord? Is your wrath against the rivers? Or is your fury against the sea when you ride on your horses, your victorious chariot? You took the sheath from your bow, the arrows are ready to be used, with an oath. Selah. You split the earth with rivers, the mountains see you and shudder. A downpour of water sweeps by and lifts its waves high. Sun and moon stand still in their lofty residence at the flash of your flying arrows, at the brightness of your shining spear. You march across the earth with indignation. You trample down the nations in wrath. You come out to save your people, to save your anointed. You crush the leader of the house of the wicked and strip him with foot, from foot to neck. Selah. You pierce his head with his own spears. His warriors storm out to scatter us, gloating as if ready to secretly devour the weak. You tread the sea with your horses, stirring up the vast water. I heard. I trembled with it. My lips quivered at the sound. Rottenness entered my bones. I trembled where I stood. Now I must quietly wait for the day of distress to come against the people invading us. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there is no fruit on the vines, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though the flocks disappear from the pen, and there are no herds in the stalls, yet I will celebrate in my Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. The Lord my God, or the Lord my Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like those of a deer, and enables me to walk on mountain heights. Habakkuk is a favorite of mine because Habakkuk, like Jonah, manifests a weakness that only faith can solve. The difference is that Jonah's weakness was his pride, and faith could not overcome that. Whereas Habakkuk has faith, as even the book concludes with that very declarative statement of faith. Um, in verse 19, the Lord my Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like those of a deer and enables me to walk on mountain heights. But you see, Habakkuk was looking at the destruction Jeremiah describes of his own people. He's witnessing the Chaldeans bring them down to rubble. Wicked, wicked people, bringing people who, though are evil in Habakkuk's eyes, are God's chosen people. And though they are evil, they are not as evil as the Chaldeans. That's how we kind of assess things in our human status. So God says to Habakkuk, well, you can take your stand, but it will be the righteous who lives by faith. And it becomes that particular statement that the Apostle Paul seizes upon in nearly every book he writes to illustrate the power of faith. Just like Habakkuk had to witness his nation crumble before him and trust that God was in, enacting his justice and would ultimately reward his people, Habakkuk had to trust that God's word was true. Isn't that what you and I are supposed to do every day? When we witness everything around us falling apart, we see wickedness and we see unrighteousness rewarded, even in our society. We just have to walk by faith. And it will be the just one who will live by that kind of faith. A faith that trusts God's word no matter what. The kind of faith that will trust God's word no matter what he cannot see. Because faith is the assurance of things not seen. And that, my friend, is the kind of faith we need to have. Join me tomorrow for another reading through the Bible in chronological order.